Ellison tentatively asked them what had happened, but the red dragon named Vaint seemed prepared and pushed open the restaurant door directly. The bloodstains on the floor emitted the scent of a red dragon. Seeing this, Ellison invited them to have a proper conversation as they drank some tea, but the red dragons were not pleased and immediately started transforming into their dragon form. Seeing this, Ellison sighs. I guess this is your choice then. Knees, sensing the fight from afar, was smug. Just then Darba spoke. I never expected the red dragons to use that to attack Ellison. What was his name again? Vaint, the leader of the younger generation of red dragons. Although they don't pay attention to each other individually, they emphasize unity greatly and would not let the killer of a red dragon get away. How dare you touch a red dragon? In an instant, a stream of dragon fire shot directly at Ellison, but Ellison showed no intention of dodging, merely raising his hand to neutralize the attack. Ellison, not wanting the fight to affect the nearby innocents, suggested settling matters in an uninhabited area. Vaint then agrees. At the same time, a teleportation portal suddenly appeared at Elena's clinic, and Ruren hurried out carrying Serena. She then lays her on the bed and urgently commands Elena to save Serena. The most urgent issue now was to heal Serena's wounds, or she would surely die from excessive blood loss. Just then, Elena started healing Serena. At this moment, Ellison was in a forest, needing to think calmly. Those men suspected him of killing Serena, but he needed to clarify the situation. Were they part of this framing plot, or were they also being used by the person who designed this trap? He then asked the red dragons to calm down, but seeing the bloodstains of the red dragon in the restaurant, they were convinced that Ellison had killed their kin. Ellison then explained the situation, telling them that the red dragon had already been injured before coming to the restaurant and that he was trying to save her. Vaint was shocked by this revelation, and then Jard suggested they check on Serena's condition, but Ellison directly refused his proposal. Unexpectedly, Jard then launched an attack on Ellison. Ellison understood that he could not dissociate himself from the situation, especially since Jard was instigating others by claiming that Ellison wanted to drive Serena out of her lair. So this punk is part of those who framed me. Vaint, being misled, transformed into his dragon form, unable to tolerate being deceived. Ellison, how dare you try to weasel out of this situation by lying? What a sly bastard. Ellison knew that explanations would be futile at this point and decided to teach them a lesson. Seeing Ellison's arrogance, all the red dragons unleashed their firepower, but Ellison blocked all their attacks with just one hand, which shocked Vaint, who couldn't believe all the damage could be so easily neutralized. Jard couldn't believe that a human could possess such strong power. Just then, other figures appeared in the sky. Mies and his companions had been waiting there for a long time. The red dragons didn't expect to encounter black dragons here. Seeing Mies, Ellison seemed to guess the answer, assuming all this was likely his doing. Meanwhile, on the other side, despite Elena's continuous treatment, Serena's wounds still couldn't heal, and her magical power was also depleted. Ruren knew she couldn't let Serena die, so she grabbed Elena's hand and lent her own magic power to her. Elena felt the increase in her mana, as Ruren told her to keep treating Serena. Facing the attacks of all the dragons, Ellison could only defend passively because if he killed these dragons now, even if Serena woke up, it wouldn't explain anything. However, injuring them could be considered self-defense. Then, Ellison started gathering his magic and launched a counterattack. The black dragons didn't expect Ellison to be so powerful, capable of withstanding all attacks simultaneously. They didn't hesitate to use their most powerful moves, feeling that this powerful human was a threat to them. Damn, these guys want to kill me, Ellison thought to himself. Just then, a hollow voice came from the sky asking everyone to stop, and several teleportation portals appeared before everyone. You little rascals, are you trying to start a new war? Hearing this, Vaint was stunned, not expecting that their actions would alarm the elders of both tribes. Seeing Elder Metadana appear, Ellison breathed a sigh of relief. If he hadn't arrived, Ellison really feared he would have had to flatten these youngsters. Mies, seeing the elder, immediately felt uneasy, quickly reverting from his dragon form and bowing to the elder, but he was not panicked internally because he was confident that his actions had been flawless. Moreover, since Serena had fallen to his secret technique, she definitely wouldn't survive the night. All the blame pointed towards Ellison, and even if the dragon elders sided with Ellison, they wouldn't be able to help him. Then, Mies would have the perfect excuse to execute Ellison. However, Ellison had already anticipated his thoughts, now only hoping that Ruren could heal Serena quickly. Meanwhile, Elena was doing her best to treat the red dragon, but despite exhausting her magical power, Serena's wounds still couldn't heal. Although Ruren was trying to infuse her with magic, Elena's capacity for magic was too small to handle Ruren's power. Ruren knew that Elena was the only one who could help Ellison now, so she signaled Elena to synchronize their magic. If her body couldn't handle it, there was a risk of exploding from the inside, but the choice was still Elena's. After some thought, Elena agreed to Ruren's suggestion, wanting to help Ellison as well. As the magic flowed into her, Elena almost collapsed. Compared to the power of the dragon race, her magic was like dust. A suffocating feeling almost made her lose consciousness. Seeing this, Ruren encouraged her to hold on, because saving Serena's life depended on her. Then, using the last of her strength, Elena slowly stood up. As a doctor, she was duty-bound to try to save each each patient to the fullest. At that moment, Elena unleashed an unprecedented amount of energy and Serena's wound began to heal rapidly. Now, all that was needed was for Serena to stay conscious, or all efforts would be in vain. On the other side, the Dragon Elders were inquiring about Ellison's situation. They could tell something was off with a few people. After all, everything was too coincidental, and most importantly, they believed in Ellison's character. But Vaint believed his own eyes, because he saw the bloodstains of a red dragon in the restaurant, and Ellison's identity was still that of a dragon slayer. At the same time, Jard jumped out, claiming he had witnessed the entire process of Ellison killing Serena. Nisa's uncle saw right through this as Nisa's plan, intending to frame Ellison using the red dragons. Even if someone investigated, they would not suspect the black dragons. Hearing this, Elder Dedank asks for Elder Metadana's thoughts. Seeing their confidence, Elder Metadana asked Ellison if he had anything to say, which made Ellison pause, as he hadn't spoken much from the beginning. Then, Ellison raised a few points of doubt. First, they accused me of killing Serena because her nest was near Grake. Anyone who understands the Dragon War knows that I would never kill a dragon for such a reason. The Dragon Elder agreed with Ellison's view. Next is the treaty I signed with the dragon race. I wouldn't take action against dragons unless they maliciously destroy human towns. To kill Serena just because she was in Grake City would be too absurd. That's just your one-sided claim. Vaint interrupted. Ellison continues that the most important point is that the relationship between black dragons and red dragons has become so close that it looks like a long premeditated plan. So you think all this is a setup? Ellison immediately gave a thumbs up. Elder Metadana really understands me. However, the red dragon elder still wanted evidence. Ellison smiled and said, why don't we let the person involved speak for herself? When Nis saw the teleportation portal, he instantly broke out in a cold sweat, as did the other black dragons and Jard. Nis clearly remembered having punctured Serena's organs. She shouldn't have survived an hour, yet here she was, perfectly intact. Ellison knew Elena had provided a lot of help and promptly thanked her. Rurin briefly explained the mana transfer process, and Elena had also made a significant effort. Just then, Rurin saw Nis. She immediately knew it was his scheme. Ellison signaled Rurin not to be impulsive, as he had already thought of a countermeasure. Then, Ellison asked Serena about her physical condition, but she even joked about it. The next moment, Ellison's fist fell on her head. You almost got me in big trouble. Didn't you see my situation? Hurry up and explain. Serena immediately agrees to explain while caressing her head. At this time, Nis and the others were pale, not expecting the situation to spiral out of their control. Serena looked around and noticed that Jard had disappeared. She then recounted the events. It was these 5 people who suddenly broke into my den and injured me. If it wasn't for Ellison, I would now be a corpse. The Dragon Elders were also grim-faced because if this were mishandled, it could lead to war. Vaint felt very angry and rushed up to Ellison to beg for forgiveness. Seeing his sincerity, Ellison did not make it difficult for him. After all, he was also used. The people behind them began to panic, but the Elder had no time to listen to their excuses. At this moment, Nis still did not repent, regretting that he hadn't killed Serena with one blow, believing it was all Ellison's fault. Suddenly, he moved behind Ellison and prepared to ambush. Taking advantage of Ellison's distraction, Nis launched a full-force strike. Ellison did not expect him to act in front of the Elder, cursing silently, damn it, and at the critical moment, he chose to push Rurin away. Then the attack heavily fell on his back. Seeing this, Nis's face showed a satisfied expression, while Rurin, seeing Ellison suddenly fall, was at a loss, having not anticipated such a situation. Elena also felt the same. Seeing the lifeless Ellison, Rurin still tried to cover his wounds, because if it wasn't for Ellison pushing her away, she would have been the one lying on the ground. At this time, Vaint finally saw Nis's true nature, not expecting him to use such despicable methods. However, Nis confidently stated that he was saving the dragon race, which left Vaint full of doubts. Nis shouted, "Open your eyes, everyone! Why should we abide by those stupid agreements? A human fantasizes about saving the world. He didn't even properly counter our attacks. He just endured a combined dragon assault." However, the elders just quietly watched him rant. Meanwhile, Elena continuously treated Ellison, but her power alone wasn't effective. She needed Rurin's cooperation. At this moment, Rurin was already in chaos. Clearly, losing Ellison would break her at any moment. Next to him, Nis couldn't help but mock. "Stupid elf, give up. Your efforts are meaningless. He is but an ant. He cannot survive without a shield." Just then, Serena gave a slight smile because she had already seen through Ellison's ruse. "I guess your specialty is a surprise attack from behind." Serena then calmed Rurin down and told her that Ellison's magical power had never weakened. On the contrary, it was growing stronger. Meanwhile, a hand gently wiped away Rurin's tears. Then Ellison released a powerful force. Seeing this, Nis, who had been full of bluster just moments before, suddenly lost his nerve. Elder Metadana was also shaken internally, for he felt a familiar presence. It was the essence of the Dragon Essence Crystal. It turns out this was all part of Ellison's plan. He had bet that a scoundrel like Nis would attempt a sneak attack, and clearly, he had bet correctly. Ellison had studied the use of the Essence Crystal for a long time without success, so he guessed it might require a trigger. Therefore, Ellison didn't activate his shield and took Nisa's attack head-on. Because of this, the essence crystal had now integrated with him. Ellison's sudden revival left Ruren momentarily unable to react. Ellison then comforted her. It's all over now. At this moment, Nise, frightened by a human being able to block his ambush, was extremely unwilling. He then gathered his power again, intending to make a final strike against Ellison. This time, he decided to overdraw from the essence, planning to go down together with Ellison. However, Ellison simply waved his hand and caught his attack barehanded. Still too weak, Ellison said calmly, "You should be aware of my agreement with the dragon race, which prohibits dragons from killing, kidnapping, or invading other races, and humans cannot wage war against dragons unless their lives are threatened." Ellison continued, "So, Nise, this time I allow you to strike back with all your might." As Ellison released his magic, several meteor-sized fireballs appeared in the sky, stunning Nise, who couldn't believe that a human could possess such power. But it was already too late, and as Nise screamed, the meteors smashed straight into the ground. When the smoke slowly cleared, Nise was dead beyond dead. Seeing this, his subordinate was stunned. To Ellison, the dragons were like insects that could be crushed by hand. Having done all this, Ellison turned to Ruren with a smile. "It's time to go home." Hearing this, Ruren rushed to him. Afterward, Elder Madamada was very disappointed with the dragon tribe, and the three of them were banished to the deepest prison in the Holy Land for 3,000 years. Serena also received many rewards because Vaint believed they had stolen Serena's treasures, otherwise she wouldn't have appeared so destitute. Meanwhile, Serena was more concerned about Jard's whereabouts, unwilling to let this despicable man go easily. Vaint felt the same, to be played by such a person in charge of the Red Dragons. "Once we catch him, I will make him suffer twice as much." Serena nodded in satisfaction, as she had no feelings left for Jard. The restaurant incident also came to a close. Meanwhile, back home where Ruren was very angry, dissatisfied with Ellison's plan. "If Nise had been a bit stronger, you would have been the one to die today." Ruren could not accept it no matter what. Seeing this, Ellison did not hesitate, hugged Ruren from behind, and apologized for his actions. This caused Ruren to bubble up with emotion like a teapot. Suddenly, a voice startled them both. "It's you, old man, causing trouble again." Ruren swung her fist at the elder's face. "What the heck? Why are you here? You're so clueless." Ellison could only smile awkwardly because he had asked the elder to come here. Elder Madamada rubbed his nose, feeling wronged. "So, what was the purpose of calling me here?" Ellison directly told him. It was about the essence crystal issue. As Ruren's elder, Ellison naturally brought out his best wine to entertain Elder Madamada. The curious elder did not hesitate and took a sip, instantly captivated by the unique taste. The instant it touched his palate, it felt refreshing, like a spring breeze carrying the scent of flowers, and it seemed to be a mixture of various different aromas. Clearly, this wine seemed to have been aged for a long time. "It must have a history of 60 or 70 years, the elder commented. "That's right." Ellison did not expect that with just one sip he would guess correctly, and his senses are really of a monster. Hearing this, Ruren also became curious, as this was her first time encountering such wine, and it must have tasted very good. However, Ellison immediately stopped her, as this was no ordinary wine. Seeing the close relationship between the two, the elder was much reassured, thinking that Ruren must be much happier here than with the dragon tribe. Then, Ellison changed the subject, asking the elder what he thought about the events of the evening, as he had killed Nise in front of so many dragons. The elder signaled him not to worry. "This conflict was initiated by Nise, and you did nothing to violate the treaty. If you hadn't acted, I would have intervened personally." The elder also noticed something about Ellison. "It seems you knew Nise would attack, so you deliberately didn't resist, right?" Ellison did not deny it, because he needed to complete the absorption of the essence crystal. During the Dragon War, he had already absorbed 2 crystals, gaining the power to control the dragon race, and absorbing a third meant he would gain the power to rule all dragon races. "Ellison, you absorbed another essence crystal now. If I'm right, you have." "Yes, I have absorbed 3 essence crystals." However, theoretically, if Ellison were a dragon, after absorbing 3 essence crystals, Ellison would transform into a dragon lord. Ellison nodded in agreement, which was exactly why he had summoned the elder. If someone absorbs 3 essence crystals, will more ancient crystals appear? When a dragon becomes the dragon lord, the remaining essence crystals will all disappear. But there has never been a case in which a human has absorbed 3 essence crystals. The elder indicated that Ellison's case was difficult to tell. Besides, there was another extremely important matter. Someone was attempting to revive the dragon lord. This made a sudden impact on Madamada's heart, and Ruren also recalled the incident at the dwarf's cave. At that time, a group of dragons had attacked them, aiming to seize something in their possession. The elder saw the reason for Ellison's public absorption of the essence crystal. "If they intend to revive the dragon lord, then I am definitely the target. So you set yourself up as bait, which is really a foolish method." Before the elder could finish, a fist the size of a sandbag heavily fell on his head. The elder also didn't understand what he had said wrong. "I'll leave the investigation to you, elder," Ellison said with a smile. Meanwhile, at Elena's clinic, just as she returned from grocery shopping, Serena suddenly appeared behind her, startling her. It turns out Serena felt too bored alone, so she came to chat with Elena. Because her injuries were not yet fully healed, healed. She considered herself still a patient. Before Elena could react, Serena pulled her inside. If you tell me about the mana transfer, I might be able to help heal people. I'm the type of dragon who repays both favors and grudges. Elena awkwardly bowed her head. All my meals are vegetarian. Are you alright with that? This scene was just witnessed by Lady Rain outside, her eyes as wide as copper bells. Meanwhile, Jard was desperately running because he was being pursued by red dragons. Just when he thought he was safe, Sydney appeared behind him. Her task was to deal with Jard, as he had failed to steal the essence crystal from the dwarves. To prevent this secret from leaking, she coldly said, "Tell me, do I have a reason to let you live?" Seeing this, Jard quickly tried to explain. Because Ellison has already absorbed 3 essence crystals, now no dragon can defeat him. Maybe if we can find a way to control him, the plan still has a chance of success. Sydney paused and sneered. You make some sense, but that's not a reason for me to let you live, is it? Accompanied by a slash on Jard's neck, he immediately lost consciousness. A few days later, Ellison continued running the restaurant like usual. Just then, Nellen carried a stone to Ellison's restaurant as a gift. I dug it out while working at the mines. The seniors thought you would like it. Ellison recognized at a glance that it was rock salt, a natural mineral salt. Curious, Rurin tasted it with her fingertip, instantly turning herself into salty dragon jerky, which reminded Ellison of his early days in this world. At that time, Ellison had just arrived in this world, coinciding with the Dragon Wars, and he was also drafted into the army. When he was drafted, everything felt strange. Initially, Ellison thought he was dreaming, assuming he would return the next day, but instead, he stayed in this world. Of course, the most painful thing for him was the food here, which was utterly flavorless, not just bad tasting, but completely devoid of taste. He thought he was the only one who felt this way, but after seeing everyone's reaction, he realized the problem was with the food. Thus, opening a restaurant became Ellison's biggest dream. To achieve this dream, he had to improve his capabilities to survive. But before that, he had to change the ingredients here, even if just by adding a little salt. Otherwise, he feared he would die of malnutrition before dying on the battlefield. A few days later, the training camp welcomed a new magic instructor named Vane, who is a 5th class Imperial Mage. The effect of this magic circle is simple. It only gathers mana in one place. By applying additional magic circles here, you manipulate the mana's attribute. This marks Ellison's first encounter with magic. For example, if you add a fire attribute here, it becomes the most basic offensive magic, Fireball. Then Vane blasted the training decoy with a fireball. After the instructor's brief explanation, they began formal magic practice. As most were first-time magic users, many couldn't even control the power of the flame and the direction of their spells. Vane becomes very angry at this scene, as he feels that these people are not worth his time. Just then, a huge spell burst from Ellison's hands, destroying the entire training field with a single strike. Ellison himself was stunned, not knowing what had happened. As even the mountains collapsed, everyone was left in shock. Immediately afterward, Vane hurriedly asked Ellison how he had managed to do it. Ellison answered nervously. It turned out that he could see the flow of mana in the air, which frightened Vane. Soon, Vane consulted instructor Theron, who had been aware of Ellison's capabilities from the beginning. A person who could see mana flows without having studied magic could be considered a genius among geniuses. No, I also studied magic myself, but it's too strange to explain it just like that, Vane said to express dissatisfaction. Instructor Theron then said that perhaps delaying Ellison's frontline deployment and sending Ellison for advanced magic training would be better considering his achievements. Vane was very dissatisfied with this, but could do nothing about it, realizing it was impossible to take Ellison away. Meanwhile, Ellison is hearing everything on the other side of the door. The door immediately opened and Vane left angrily, leaving behind a remark. Don't get cocky just because you've learned Fireball. Since you damaged the training field, restore it to its original state. The sun set in the training ground, and Ellison had to clean up the training field alone. He couldn't believe that such a high-ranking instructor could be so harsh. Couldn't he be a bit more friendly to the trainees? Recalling his childhood, his mother often praised him, which had been his motivation to persevere. Since then, he had been particularly meticulous about his cooking skills. Thinking of this made Ellison miss his mother. He then crouches on the ground. A little praise wouldn't have hurt. Just then, Ellison discovered some translucent crystalline substances. Curious, he picked one up to examine it, thinking it might have fallen from the mountain. He wondered, could it be that thing? Then, Ellison tentatively licked it and, to his surprise, it really was rock salt. With this, he was confident the food the next day would be radically transformed. Quickly, the next day arrived, and his comrades showed little interest in the usual food, having become numb to it. But one man tasted it and immediately noticed something was different. Today's flavor was significantly better, more than 10 times better. Thus, everyone began to devour the food eagerly. Ellison was very satisfied. Just adding salt had completely changed the flavor. On the other side, Theron also noticed something unusual. Was there a new chef today? But the answer he got was that nothing had changed. Little by little, Ellison started to improve the meals. He cleaned the potatoes and peeled them, a step the previous chefs never bothered with. He then added some side dishes, prepared the sauce separately, and mixed them together. A simple potato soup was thus created. When Ellison took a small sip, Tears of happiness streamed down his face. It made him appreciate the joy of living once again. Ideally, he would add some spices or mushrooms too, but this is enough for him. He was about to scoop another spoon of the soup when someone called his name. Trainee Ellison, come to the instructor's office after your meal, Theron said, startling Ellison. You know the reason best, don't you? Hearing this, Ellison felt nervous as cold sweat began to drip down his face. Ellison had arrived at the instructor's office and was silently facing Theron. Theron mentioned that he had heard Ellison showed exceptional talent in magic, to which Ellison nervously agreed. Theron then praised him, noting that this talent provided them with a strategic advantage in the war. However, he also mentioned that unsettling rumors were circulating in the kitchen. Hearing this, Ellison immediately became anxious. Theron then warned, someone keeps sneaking in at odd hours and leaves before the cooks start using the kitchen. If that person leaves before 5 o'clock, we won't be able to catch him. Ellison understood this was Theron hinting at him. Then, Theron handed Ellison a scroll. But that's not why I called you here. I called to congratulate you on your achievement in magic training. These are some little things I've been working on personally. Now I'm thinking of throwing them away. Before he left, he reminded Ellison again that if the person left the kitchen before 5, there was no way to catch them. Ellison didn't understand the meaning of the scroll mentioned by Theron until he opened it and realized Theron already knew it was him, as the scroll contained records of which foods were edible that Theron had researched. With Theron's help, Ellison gradually learned more about the food in this other world. Eventually, the northern training camp became famous for its delicious cuisine, and even after Ellison left, the chefs continued to use his recipes and maintain that reputation. Just then, Nellen curiously asked what Ellison's cooking now. It turns out Ellison prepared the potato soup to relieve the memories together. He planned to let Rurin and Nellen taste the army's food. This made Nellen excited. Eagerly, they began tasting the soup but found it to be mediocre. Ellison also tried some and noticed it didn't taste as good as before. He speculated that perhaps the difference in environment affected the flavor. It's been a long time since Ellison has been able to remember old times, and today he realized he doesn't miss it at all. Meanwhile, at Elena's clinic, Serena, waiting at the elf clinic, and unexpectedly encountered a pair of crying children. It turns out the little girl's brother had accidentally hurt himself, and Elena was not at the clinic at the moment. Serena suggested they go home for their parents to bandage the wound, but the little girl said their parents were out working and no one was at home. Seeing this, Serena felt conflicted, lamenting, "Why does everyone have to poke my soft spot?" Moments later, the siblings walked out of the clinic happily, telling Elena that a red-haired sister had healed their wounds. This puzzled Elena. Just then, Serena stood at the door shouting her name. "Did you treat those kids?" "Well, I can do simple healing magic." Elena didn't expect the usually aloof red dragon to also have a kind side. Serena felt embarrassed and quickly changed the subject. "Where did you just go?" "I'm starving." It turns out Elena had just been to the Lord's mansion for a medical examination, but all treatments had failed. Hearing this, Serena thought of someone who specialized in brain diseases. Elena was surprised and immediately inquired who was it. However, the problem was it had been so long that Serena had forgotten that person's name. Meanwhile, a blue bird carrying a letter arrived in front of Elena. Serena was curious where it came from. It turns out that these birds only live in the elf forest. Could something have happened in the elf forest? As Elena read the contents of the letter, she was visibly shocked. Serena, noticing her distress, inquired about the contents of the letter. Elena, in tears, said, "The elf forest is in danger of being destroyed by a dragon, and to avoid destruction, I might have to become a dragon's bride." Serena, hearing this, is dumbfounded. "Oh man, I thought it was something serious. What should I do? I thought marriage was supposed to be with someone you love, or at least someone you could be friends with for a while." Serena reassured her. "Hey, you fool, calm down." Elena immediately stops crying and listens to Serena's words. "What's there to worry about? With me here, no one can hurt you. I'll make that arrogant dragon cry all the way back to his mother," Serena fiercely declared. Just then, the bird that delivered the letter to Elena safely returned to the elven forest. An elf saw this and informed the elf chief Neria that it seemed the letter was delivered safely. Hearing this, the elf chief Neria was relieved. The other elf curiously asks why the letter is too detailed. Will Elena really return to her homeland under the dragon threat? She will. That child is very selfless. However, even if she returns, I'm not sure she can solve the current problem. On the other side, Serena angrily questions Elena. "Don't you trust me? I was trying to look cool. Why else would you call them?" Ellison announces the restaurant is closed while Rurin asks Serena if she has a problem with them coming. Elena explains in a panic, "It was just a precaution. I was worried you might get hurt." Thus, they argued all the way to the elven forest. Due to the elves' magical barriers limiting teleportation within the forest, they had to proceed on foot. Just then, Rurin sensed a dangerous presence. Arrows were pointed at them. It was the elven warriors who had detected them. Even though Elena came forward to explain, the elven captain still wasn't convinced of their identities. To ensure they wouldn't harm the elven people, the captain said she needed to verify their identities again using elf's eyes to figure out another person's intention. So, Ellison revealed his identity to them. The elf captain acknowledged his answer and proceeded to ask Serena next. Serena was about to reveal she was a dragon, but Ellison interrupted interrupted and talked more about himself. The elf captain is visibly irritated when another elf stops the captain. She delivers a message from the elf chief Neria. Quickly, the elves put away their bows and apologized. We apologize for failing to recognize our guest. It was disrespectful to do so. Please enter. Lady Neria is waiting for you all. Hearing this, Elena breathed a sigh of relief. When they meet the elf chief Neria, she seems to recognize Ellison. Thank you for your hospitality, Lady Neria. Elena didn't expect Ellison to know their leader, but perhaps that wasn't surprising, considering he's capable of casting terrifying magic. Regarding Elena's situation, the elf chief expressed her regrets. Serena then interrupted her. But why choose her as the bride? Which idiot wants to marry her? Hearing this, Neria appeared very nervous. You shouldn't insult him because he might hear you. He is the noble yellow dragon. As soon as she finished, Ruren and Serena released their own aura, speaking as if who isn't a dragon. We're just here to kick that noble being ass across the moon. This left Neria dumbfounded, her brain going offline for 2.5 seconds, still processing the situation. Pardon? Ellison and Elena quickly explain everything and also mention that both Ruren and Serena are both noble beings as well. Hearing this, Lady Neria is sweating coldly from shock. Pardon, she exclaimed, shaking the elven forest. The yellow dragon's name is Iramantium. Then, Neria explained the situation. The elves have been offering tributes to the yellow dragon for generations. Hearing this, Ruren is visibly disgusted. That beggar. Then Neria continues, that dragon hadn't appeared for the last 100 years until just a few days ago when he suddenly demanded a bride from the elves. Ellison asked Neria to sit comfortably. Then Ruren asked, puzzled, why choose Elena specifically? There are many other elves in the village. The queen explained, originally, I tried to resolve the matter all on my own. I intended to offer myself to the yellow dragon. It would be my honor to sacrifice myself for a race. But unexpectedly, he refused because he didn't like my hairstyle. He was quite picky about it. All the warriors in the tribe are like this. We're all rejected due to different reasons, so we pinned our hopes on Elena. Otherwise, the elves wouldn't be able to withstand his wrath. At this, Serena felt she had heard the yellow dragon's name somewhere before. Serena tried hard to remember but couldn't recall. Suddenly, she thought of that person, the one specializing in brain diseases. That's the dragon I'm telling you about. Perhaps he can treat the Lord of Grake's illness. The little kid's dad? Then it looks like we'll have to kidnap the yellow dragon, Ruren suggested to Ellison, to which he agreed. Just then an elf opens the door, informing Neria that Iramantium is heading to the elf forest. He must be mad since we haven't sent another candidate. Then, Neria reminded them, he is a very cunning dragon. Although he often demands tributes from us, he has never protected anyone. His first reaction upon seeing other dragons is to hide. This left them all stunned, not expecting him to be so cowardly. They thought of needing something to capture his attention so he wouldn't notice anything else. With this, all of them look at Elena. Hearing this, Elena is visibly nervous. What's wrong, guys? Meanwhile, on the other side, the yellow dragon had been waiting several days without the elves delivering the bride. Angry, he declared, tiny elven race, prepare to face my wrath. Soon, he arrived at the elven forest, ready to attack, when the elf chief appeared with Elena. When Elena's veil was lifted, she looked ethereally beautiful and shy. Seeing her demure appearance, the old yellow dragon was immediately thrilled. This is exactly my type. You should have brought someone like her earlier. At this moment, high above, Ellison and others were watching the yellow dragon's every move. Now, we just wait for him to return to his lair. Soon, the yellow dragon took Elena back to his cave. Although Elena was frightened, she had to endure for the plan. Just then, the yellow dragon looked back at her and pulled out a piece of clothing, a delicate maid's outfit. His face flushed red. From now on, you call me master. This stunned Elena, who couldn't believe the old yellow dragon had such tastes. But for the sake of everyone's plan, she had to change into the maid outfit. As she approached the yellow dragon's lab, he was reluctant to let her in, thinking it was too messy. Elena awkwardly smiled. I just wanted to help you tidy up a bit. This sent the old yellow dragon's heart racing, too nervous to speak. Seeing this, Elena thought he was angry and quickly apologized. The yellow dragon signaled her not to worry and vainly said, you must be overwhelmed by my charisma. Although you were cold to me at first, you'll warm up to my kindness in time. Hearing this, Elena's expression became uncomfortably awkward, as if she had eaten something she shouldn't have. The old yellow dragon was too self-absorbed. Meanwhile, the trio spying from above were also shocked, unable to believe how thick-skinned he was. Elena was furious, and just about to explode seeing the three still spectating, when the old yellow dragon suddenly noticed Ellison and others, panicking because he sensed their powerful auras. You're not humans. Then, he turned to flee the cave, but found his teleportation array had been destroyed. As he tried to escape through the cave entrance, Ruren and Serena's spells had already securely blocked it. Serena sneered, old guy, you can't run away now. Now you have nowhere to go. At that moment, Serena and Ruren suddenly felt a cold presence behind them. How long have you guys been watching from up there? Ellison acted as if he didn't hear her question, so Elena then turned her gaze towards Ellison. I apologize. These dragons thought it would be fun to see Elena's reaction, so we thought we'd wait and watch. Serena and Ruren were shocked that Ellison had just outed them. You wanted to see Elena's new outfit too. What are you talking about? Anyone who hears you will misunderstand. Ellison's defense. Hearing this, Elena blushed blushed deeply. Is that so? Do you like this outfit? No, this one made it up. Ellison denies it, while Serena seems to hear something else from the yellow dragon. Just then, Ruren also sensed the old yellow dragon was up to no good, noticing he seemed to be quietly chanting a spell. Soon after, the old yellow dragon taunted, "You've made a huge mistake." Meanwhile, at the elf forest, the elf chief heard the commotion from afar. She looked up to see a dark green energy orb appear in the sky. Before anyone could react, the orb exploded, and a green smoke instantly covered the entire elven tribe. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. All the elves lost consciousness and then drew their weapons, pointing them at their own throats. At the yellow dragon's command, everyone would commit suicide. Seeing this, Elena panicked. They rushed out of the cave to find the old yellow dragon had cast a hypnotic spell on the elven tribe. He then smugly declared, "This is a mind control spell I've developed over a century. If you don't agree to my demands, I will sorrowfully kill all your people. Will you abandon your family?" Elena hastily agreed, fearful the old yellow dragon might give the order at any moment. Just then, a powerful energy burst from Ellison. "Before you do that, you might want to ask if I agree. Blackmail won't work on me." As he spoke, a powerful magical array covered the entire elven tribe, securing everyone with Ellison's magic. Relieved, Elena finally breathed a sigh of relief. With his leverage gone, the old yellow dragon started panicking. "Ladies, let's talk this over." Ruren and Serena looked at him with kindness, ready to make him experience some spanking. Elena also expressed her anger. "You are the worst dragon I've ever met." However, flushed with delight, the old yellow dragon hadn't expected to be a masochist dragon, growing even fonder of Elena as she scolded him. With this, he receives extreme beating from Serena and Ruren. The evening arrives with a bonfire in the heart of the elven forest, where everyone is celebrating their freedom. Some are playing instruments, while others are dancing. Elena happily jumps into Neria's arms. Iramantium had been beaten into a pig-headed dragon, helpless before a table of vibrant vegetarian dishes. Serena was unsure how to begin eating, while Ruren took out a bottle of sauce and enjoyed her meal enthusiastically. "It's a sauce Ellison gave me. It makes the grass taste delicious." Neria saw Serena and Ruren and expressed her gratitude for their help. "You're mistaken. We just beat the shit out of that meatball. It was Ellison who saved you." Hearing this, Neria was stunned. Serena pointed at Ellison. "I thought you already knew it was him. We don't have the power to cast such a powerful spell. Only he does." Meanwhile, Ellison shared the salad dressing he had made with the elves, who absolutely loved it. Then he slowly moved out from the crowd, approached a statue, and placed some food before it, whispering, "Here, have some too. Good to see you again, old friend." Seeing the statue in front of him, Ellison couldn't help but reminisce about the times his group had teamed up. "To be honest, I think you look better as a statue." Back then, Beaton would bicker daily with Ellison for not allowing him to eat meat, as Ellison knew that the elven race couldn't digest meat. But Beaton couldn't resist the allure of Ellison's cooking. The dwarf Darren had gotten used to their constant bickering. Just then, Darren interrupted them. Instead of arguing, "I think fighting is more interesting." He pointed to the side, where a group of goblins was chasing some merchants. At the critical moment, a spell hit one of the goblins in the face, followed by a flurry of arrows. The goblins could only howl powerlessly outside their shields. Seeing the trio, the merchants felt a glimmer of hope, as they were the well-known heroes of the Empire. Ellison missed those days, but hadn't expected what happened afterward. He always felt guilty about it. "Maybe you will resent me for this, Lady Neria." 2 years ago, during a mission, Beaton was tragically caught in the enemy's trap and died on the battlefield. Ellison brought his body back to the elven tribe, but Beaton had already turned into a cold corpse. Beaton had once promised he would return to the elven tribe, and in the end, it was Ellison who fulfilled this promise for him. Therefore, Neria didn't hold any resentment towards Ellison, as he had also saved the elven tribe. Then, Ellison pulled out a bottle of wine from his bag. "I owe Beaton not just this power, but my whole life. So, the real hero who saved the elves wasn't me," Ellison said while giving Neria a glass of wine. "Cheers to Hero Beaton." Then they toast in front of Beaton's statue. The next day, the elves once again thanked the group for their help, and Ellison and his companions set off for home. As for the old yellow dragon, after seeing Ellison's strength, he no longer dared to target the elves. At that moment, Ruren interrupted Ellison's thoughts because she had overheard the elf chief's conversation with him the day before. Hearing this, Elena is confused and thinks Ellison had a conversation with Lady Neria. Ruren wondered why Ellison hadn't mentioned anything about eating the Lord's heart. Ellison answered that it's a secret to everyone else. Hearing this, the three behind him were stunned. Ellison explained everything to Ruren, and the old yellow dragon also broke into a cold sweat, fearful that Ellison might unleash some casual magic on him. Just then, Ellison and his group arrive at the city lord's mansion. Dyran knew that Ellison had been away for a while and was surprised that he came to the mansion first upon his return, presumably with something important. This was Ellison's first official visit to the Count's mansion. Hearing the noise outside, Mrs. Verna was puzzled. "Dyran, is that a guest?" Then, Dyran introduced his teacher, but Mrs. Verna kept staring at Ellison, feeling that he looked familiar. She soon remembered what had happened before. She had wanted to thank Ellison, but had never been able to find him. "Thank you for saving me and Dyran," she said while grabbing Ellison's hand. Just then, Ellison interrupted her thoughts. "You don't have to thank me yet. What? There's still one person I haven't saved. This left Diran and Mrs. Verna even more puzzled. Then, Ruren walked in with Iramantium. He was much more subdued now, no longer as arrogant as before. Seeing Ridden lying on the sickbed, Iramantium immediately knew that this was a major brain issue, likely caused by a powerful toxin. But this was not a difficult problem for him. Then, Iramantium cast a spell, accompanied by a bright light, and Ridden's vision gradually cleared, and he started to make faint sounds. Seeing this, Mrs. Verna and Diran could no longer contain their emotions and immediately embraced Ridden. With that, the issue with the city lord of Grake finally came to a close. Seeing this, Ellison also remembers her mother, and he started missing her more. Seeing that Iramantium had behaved well, Ruren released him from her magical control. For the time being, Ellison called Ruren, telling her that they should get going now. They decided to leave the time to this warm family. The evening comes at the restaurant. Because Ruren secretly finished all the beer, Ellison had to use a summoning spell again. This was his first time using a summoning spell after absorbing 3 essence crystals. Unexpectedly, the spell's power exceeded Ellison's expectations, instantly engulfing him and Ruren. When Ellison opened his eyes again, he found himself in a familiar yet strange environment. Ellison clearly remembered that he was preparing ingredients. As the scene before him twisted, Ellison remembered this was where he had been before he went to the other world. He was finally back in the real world. As Ruren kept calling to him, Ellison gradually came to his senses. However, Ruren was very nervous when she saw the glowing iron lump in front of her, as she didn't know where it was. Once Ellison realized this wasn't a dream, a passerby asked if they are alright. When passersby were about to call for an ambulance, Ellison hurriedly picked up Ruren and ran away. Passersby, curious about Ellison's strange attire, couldn't help but wonder, is this a cosplay? A moment later, the two found a secluded place. Only then did Ruren realize this was Ellison's home. Ellison hadn't expected to return to Earth in this manner. Looking at the brightly lit city around him, Ruren excitedly wanted Ellison to take her around for a tour, but Ellison was quite embarrassed because he had just noticed that the girl's phone in her hand was something he had never seen before, along with the surrounding skyscrapers and the complex traffic. He began to realize that his location was completely different from his memories from 15 years ago. Ellison did not know his exact location, but in this familiar yet unfamiliar place, he still had a destination in mind. However, before that, he needed to exchange some real-world currency. Meanwhile, at the farm, everyone was at work as usual, taking care of the Barinerics, but they were puzzled as the restaurant opened much later than usual. As Ellison learned to sleep in too, they wondered. Soon, Ellison and Ruren changed into modern clothes, but Ellison was saddened by not being able to exchange much money. A gold coin could have been exchanged for 4 million Korean won, but the shop required his ID information, and ultimately Ellison had to sell the gold coin at half the price. Just then, Ruren's stomach embarrassingly growled. The two spotted a Chinese restaurant in front of them, and Ellison quickly decided what to eat. Jajangmyeon might be a good choice. Ruren started devouring the noodles, savoring their delicious and savory taste. But when Ellison picked up the menu, he was shocked. He remembered that jajangmyeon used to cost only 4,000 won, but now it had risen to 8,000 won. Our clothes weren't the only expensive things? Ellison was stunned, looking at the menu. You sound like an elder dragon. However, Ellison wasn't planning to save money. Filling their stomachs was the most important thing for now. Afterward, Ellison took Ruren to try foods unavailable in the other world and to reacquaint himself with this era, as the world now contained many things he had never seen before. Meanwhile, outside Ellison's restaurant, many customers gathered, but the restaurant had been closed for 2 days. Serena is visibly irritated. Where did they go? No one knew where Ellison had gone, and it was unlike him to leave without a word. Some customers are leaving. The reputation of the restaurant might be affected. If this continued, they began to worry that something might have happened to Ellison. Seeing this, Lindy proposed his idea. Perhaps we could try managing Ellison's restaurant, as all the ingredients should be here. Hearing this, Ment and Meltian were stunned as they knew that it wouldn't be easy. Meanwhile, Ellison and Ruren had finished their day's adventures and boarded a train. Although Ellison could have used magic to fly or teleport, he was concerned that it might frighten others. At that moment, Ruren asks if they are going to meet Ellison's mother. Hearing this, Ellison was surprised that Ruren knew all along. Just then, Ruren admired the scenery outside through the train window, finding Ellison's homeland very appealing. Ellison was thinking seriously and then called out Ruren. Ellison suddenly asked her, "What would you say if I asked if we could stay here? If we live here forever without ever going back?" Hearing this, Ruren was speechless. Ellison continues while the train moves. "Since I'm here now, the essence crystals won't appear in that world, and the threat of the Lord's birth also disappeared. So I was wondering, what if we start anew here?" Hearing this, Ruren felt conflicted and unsure how to respond. Ellison signaled that she didn't need to rush her answer. Meanwhile, Ruren also asked him, "If I refuse you, would you be willing to give up living here and return with me?" This reminded Ellison of the time when he first arrived in the other world. At that time, he studied teleportation magic every day just to return to Earth. No matter how much energy he used, he could not open the gateway back to Earth. Ellison had once tried to touch a teleportation portal that was only the size of a finger, but his companion companions stopped him because the magic was extremely unstable. If he had reached out to touch it, his fingers might have been severed by the energy. With all his might, he wanted to at least send a letter to the portal. When the letter got in, the portal blasted. After witnessing this, everyone fell silent for a moment. Then Beaton, feeling furious, scolded Ellison, insisting that he give up the spell. He reminded Ellison that, because of that spell, he wouldn't be able to use magic for several weeks. At that time, Ellison had only one thought: to go home. Darren, you'll return to the mines after the war ends, right? Hearing this, Darren was speechless. Beaton, you'll return to the elves' forest, to which Beaton agrees. Ellison feels hopeless and can't hold back his tears. As for me, where am I supposed to go? Beaton and Darren both don't know how to respond to Ellison and remain silent by his side. As Ellison was sinking into a sense of loss, he answered, "Have I ever abandoned you before?" Hearing this, Ruren's mood brightened. "You would never, right?" Then they continued to chat happily on the train. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Lindy was meticulously mimicking Ellison's way of cutting meat, slicing the meat just as Ellison would. Next was starting the fire, but he realized there was no fuel underneath, leaving him somewhat at a loss. Then, Miltine suddenly remembered that Ellison used magic, so they both looked at Elena. Along with her incantation, a small flame appeared in front of everyone. Seeing this, Serena, not to be outdone, silently recited a spell, and instantly, a powerful flame covered the grill. "Don't worry, I've got enough flame here." Seeing this, Lindy thought, "I don't know who she is, but the problem has been solved." With everyone's help, all the ingredients were prepared. However, when a piece of blackened food was brought to the table, the customers were immediately taken aback. The customer, confused, asked, "Did you serve me cold because I'm a minor?" To which Miltine apologized. Mr. Knoll attempted to prepare the salad ingredients as Ellison would, but the customers found it nearly inedible due to excessive saltiness. Mr. Ment also tried to help by adding salt, but mistakenly handed over a bottle of sugar instead. As a result, the customers could hardly take a bite because the salad was overly sweet. Seeing the customers' reactions, Lindy felt very nervous. If this continues, the restaurant might have to close early. He could hardly focus on grilling the meat. Looking at the blazing flame, the meat burns as soon as he puts it on. He tried to get Serena to reduce the flame, but clearly, she had no intention of reducing it. "What can I do to prevent the food from burning?" Just then, he noticed a metal bucket nearby and thought, "Maybe I can try this." Meanwhile, Ellison had returned to the neighborhood where he used to live. Although much had changed, some places were still as he remembered. He quickly found the house from his memories, and his heart finally settled. "I'm finally home." Then, he knocked on the door, nervously waiting for it to open, wondering how to greet his mother. "Will she recognize me? After all, my hairstyle is still the same as 15 years ago." However, after waiting a long time, there was no response from inside. Ellison thought, could my mother be asleep? Just then, the door next door suddenly opened, and out came a neighbor. Ellison immediately asked the neighbor if she knew where the people of Unit 604 had gone, only to be met with the girl's shock. "Are you Miss Jianhua's son?" Ellison quickly nodded. "Do you know where my mother is?" The girl wiped the corner of her eye. "She doesn't live here anymore." Then, she led Ellison and Ruren to another place. "She always boasted about her son whenever we ate together. She told me that he would be the same age as me. By the way, I'm a novelist." Ellison cut her off. "Excuse me, but where are we going right now?" Hearing this, the girl stopped, then continued walking. "Miss Jianhua missed you a lot. I suggested she hand out flyers, but she refused." Along the way, the girl sighed softly. "Why are you only coming back now? If you had returned 2 years earlier, you might have been able to see her." Hearing this, Ellison was stunned, unable to process the situation. He couldn't believe what was in front of him. Then, the girl continued speaking while serving the tune with soju. It turned out that his mother had been diagnosed with stomach cancer years ago, and despite having a gastrectomy, the cancer recurred 3 years ago, and she eventually passed away. Hearing this is too much for Ellison. No, this is not the reunion I hoped for. He imagines his mother asking him if he is hungry, and then inviting them to eat dinner together with a wide smile on her face. Just then a great tremor overtook him. Then tears raced down his cheek. "This isn't the farewell I had in mind." Then, the neighbor wiped down her tears. "Honestly, I'm not really curious about what you were doing until now. It's already too late. Even if you explain, it's not like Ms. Jianhua will come back." She searched for something in her bag and handed Ellison a letter. "This is the only thing she left behind. She said it fell into her house one day. You wrote it, didn't you?" She wrote a reply, "Just in case you came back to retrieve it." Then the neighbor left them. Ellison looked at the worn envelope, his fingers trembling as he anxiously opened it. He then read the content of the letter. Ruren glanced at the letter and said, "This seems to be paper from the Roburn Empire. Could it be the letter from you?" It turned out that after Ellison had mastered teleportation magic, he wrote this letter, talking about becoming a mage and planning to open a restaurant. However, due to the instability of the magic, he was unsure if his mother ever received the letter. "Even though I had a way to send letters, I soon gave up thinking there was no way to receive a reply," he said, trembling. Looking at the signature on the letter, Ellison's tears could no longer be held back. He had never thought he would meet his mother in this way, filled with regret for not sending more letters. "Maybe if I had, I wouldn't regret this so much." Ruren looks at Ellison with so much sympathy and then hugs him to comfort him. Back to the restaurant, which is still bustling with people. Lindy, through trial and error, gradually mastered the preparation creation of several dishes. With the help of others and their frequent experience eating Ellison's cooking, they were able to largely recreate the previous flavors. Mr. Met felt relieved. Now, the guests were not a concern. All that's left is for the manager to return. Meanwhile, in the forest, Ellison had been there for a day and a night. Ruren, worried about his health, suggested he eat something first. Then, Ellison stopped her. "I'm sorry, Ruren, I lied before. If you don't want to stay here, I'll let you go back alone." Hearing this, Ruren was shocked, unable to respond. "It's been 15 years. Mom is only me, so no matter what you said, I intended to stay here. Now, I have nothing left." Ruren immediately interrupted him. "Do you really think you have nothing left? Do you remember the question you asked on the train? I never thought about refusing your offer. Besides, I couldn't bear to leave you here alone." After speaking, Ruren firmly took his hand. "If you want, I will stay here with you forever. But what about those who remain on the other side?" Meanwhile, the news of Ellison's disappearance had reached the mansion. Ridden, who had just regained consciousness, hadn't had a chance to visit him and decided to personally look into Ellison's whereabouts. At the construction of Ruren's lair, the dwarf Goltazar also heard about it, but he wasn't panicked. "All we need to worry about is the final deadline for the building and the completion of the den. Ellison will definitely come back." The dwarf apologized and said to get back to construction immediately. Then Goltazar leaned against his back and looked up. "Ellison isn't someone who would abandon us. Don't you agree, Darren?" Everyone was waiting for Ellison's return, whether humans, dwarfs, or elves. "Maybe even dragons are knocking on our restaurant door," Ruren said as she stood up. Then she looked back at Ellison. "You say there's nothing left? There wasn't a single meaningless thing among what you did. Don't you think the 15 years you spent there is a good reason to go back?" Ellison listens to every word Ruren says. Then he asked her, "The things I wrote in the letter, do you think Mom believed them?" Ruren smiled. "Of course. I've never seen a parent who doubts their child." Then she pulled Ellison up. "Let's go back to where we belong." 2 days have passed. Since that day, the neighbor had not seen Ellison for 2 days. She began to feel that maybe she had been too harsh with her words. As she was lost in thought, a voice interrupted her. She curiously looked up to see Ellison and Ruren, their attire making her puzzled. "What is this heavy bag?" the girl asked. Then she slowly opened the bag. The woman was stunned by the sight of the bag. Then, a portal appeared in front of them, and Ellison said, "It looks like we need to get back to the restaurant. There are a lot of people waiting." Ellison turned to her and said, "Thank you for taking care of my mother's grave." After speaking, Ellison and Ruren disappeared in front of her. This reminded her of what Ms. Zhonghua had once said. "I want to get well soon. There's a restaurant I really want to go. Although it's a bit far, I know it's already open, and it's called a 9th-class Archmage restaurant." Watching the spot where Ellison and Ruren had disappeared, the woman was taken aback for a long time. She couldn't believe that what Ms. Zhonghua had said was true. Her son really was a 9th-class Archmage. At the top of a snowy mountain, Ellison and Ruren returned to another world. However, they seemed to be quite far from the restaurant. Ruren was about to use teleportation magic when Ellison interrupted her, creating an even stronger portal with a casual gesture. Ruren was astounded. "When did you learn spatial magic?" Ellison smiled. "I found it similar to dimensional magic, so I just practiced it a bit, and surprisingly, it actually worked." Back at the outskirts of the restaurant, Ellison looked troubled. "It seems we have some explaining to do about our disappearance these past few days." Ellison didn't know how to explain his long absence to everyone. He assumed they must be angry, and Ruren guessed that the restaurant's customers had probably left as well. But as the two approached the restaurant, they were stunned by what they saw. A statue had been erected outside the restaurant at some point. This made Ellison wonder if he had gone to the wrong place. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, Lindy was passionately recounting Ellison's heroic deeds, and the customers listening were deeply moved. Then, Lindy shifted gears. "This is the dish that cured the Count back then." Hearing this, the customers scrambled to place their orders. Just then, a turtle head peeked quietly from behind the door, startling Lindy. Ellison walked into the restaurant and said, "What's going on here? I'd better get an explanation." At that moment, Ridden stepped forward and interrupted with a smile. "Good to see you again. This was all my idea." The night comes at the restaurant, and Lindy continued to explain. "The night you disappeared, everyone panicked. To keep the restaurant going, we tried everything." Then, Ellison tried a piece of boiled meat Lindy had prepared and found it quite good. So he smiled and thought, maybe this suits him better than working at the ranch. "Well, I'm at fault this time, so I'm not going to criticize you. But what's with the statue outside? Can someone explain that to me?" Ridden happily replied, "It was meant to commemorate your achievements. Don't worry, the Count's castle will take care of it." Ellison is confused and asks what achievements he is referring to. "Back then I heard stories of a legendary soldier in the Dragon War who ignored orders and worked alone. He was the worst soldier as well as the best sorcerer. From what I heard, his name was Ellison." Hearing this, Ellison began sweating. Although it's a story that not many people know of, the day Deadran came to the castle, and when you entered the Count's mansion, I knew who you were. Ellison breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Wow, I never would have guessed you were conscious. You didn't just save the city, you saved me and my family as well. So I'll do whatever I can to help you, Sir Ellison. Do you understand now?" Hearing this, Ellison immediately smiled, and then quietly released a small spell to end the conversation. "No, I don't." Ellison's small spell directly shattered the statue. "I don't want people to include backgrounds items when evaluating my restaurant. Ridden could only offer an awkward smile. Perhaps the statue was indeed a bit much. He then said, "There's another matter. Could you help me deal with the rumor that my dishes can cure diseases?" "Of course, I'll explain that to the people myself." Meanwhile, outside Greek City, a girl bumped into someone and accidentally spilled her books on the ground. Medrin, seeing this, promptly used magic to organize the books. Her actions made the girl amazed and envious because they couldn't even see Medrin's spellcasting actions as it is performed at such speed. So rumors that Medrin had been kidnapped and tied up crying were surely false. Hearing the girl's whisper, Medrin clenched her fist and then blushed, hoping these rumors weren't true. When she reached the door, Medrin paused. She felt that someone was inside. "Duke Tamurin is the only one who can enter my room without permission, but the Duke is out of town. Then it must be that black dragon who came to greet me." Thinking of this sends a shiver down her spine already. This time, she wasn't sure if it was Ellison finding her, so she blasted open the door and plaintively said, "Please don't tie me up and drag me with you again. Rumors of it have already spread throughout the entire city, so please be nice this time," she said while closing her eyes and crying. Hearing this, the prince was also taken aback. "Medrin, what's going on?" Medrin realized that it really was the prince seeking her and was immensely embarrassed, not knowing where to put her face. Shortly after, the prince and Medrin discussed the matter of Deadran City. The increasing crime rate there was disturbing him. However, he curiously asked, "Medrin, why don't you dare look up and talk to me?" The prince reassured her, "Don't worry, this prince won't spread rumors." Then he quickly changed the subject. "So far, how many personnel have been dispatched, and how many have died so far?" Medrin, having regained her composure, replied, "3 have died. Do you want me to go and deal with those criminals?" Medrin asked, puzzled. The prince immediately shook his head. "If someone as heartless as you went, they would all hide in fear, and then we wouldn't be able to find out who was making this poison." Medrin was even more confused. "But we don't have any personnel available to dispatch now." The prince smiled. "There is one more person. Although he looks like a normal human, he is actually a monster who doesn't care about assassinating criminals or the state." Hearing this, Medrin immediately knew who he was referring to. Meanwhile, after returning to the other world, Ellison also brought back different cuisines. Currently, the most popular is grilled meat bibimbap. He slices the grilled meat into strips and grated radish, then arranges them attractively and sprinkles a little radish and green onion on top, completing a simple grilled meat bibimbap. Ellison had Ruren serve this dish to customers in need, but when the food was set before Serena, she was stunned. This doesn't look like grilled meat bibimbap at all, because there wasn't a single piece of grilled meat on it. Seeing Ruren secretly chewing something, Serena immediately realized she was up to something. The two immediately got into a fight. Meanwhile, Mrs. Verna was enjoying her meal. It turns out she had heard that Dyran always came to Ellison's restaurant to eat, so she wanted to try it herself and fell in love with the food at first taste. Just then, the restaurant's door was pushed open again, and a man walked in. "Can I have 2 of what they're eating?" Ellison glanced out of the corner of his eye and sighed softly. "Of course, please wait a moment." Soon, 2 servings of grilled meat bibimbap were prepared, and the man eagerly began to taste them. "The flavor here is really surprising," he complimented. The woman sitting nearby agreed. Seeing this, Ellison joked with a smile, "Is that so? You don't seem like someone easily surprised." This made the Crown Prince Leon, who was in disguise, very embarrassed. "I thought I made the perfect disguise for this." Ms. Verna over there didn't seem to notice. As Ellison had recognized their identities at a glance, he casually asked, "What's going on? Why are you disguised?" The prince smiled. "First, I wanted to taste the food here." Then he pulled out a blue potion from his pocket. "The second matter is about this potion." Ellison curiously asked what it is. "It's a lethal poison that can destroy a human's brain. The reason Count Ridden has been bedridden for years is because of this poison." Hearing this, Ellison turned serious. "And now, this poison is slowly spreading throughout the empire. It's a miracle that the Count woke up from it. We can't expect that from everyone, right? We need to find out who's behind it." Suddenly, the restaurant door was kicked open by 2 men. "If you don't want to die, do exactly as we say." Hearing this, the customers who were enjoying their meals suddenly stopped. Mrs. Verna was startled, not expecting to encounter robbers here. "What are you doing? Do you think we're joking around?" This scene stunned Ruren and Serena, who obviously didn't budge. Ellison and others look at them like they are a joke. There are so many hornets' nests in the world, yet these 2 chose the biggest. It wasn't long before the robbers were easily subdued by Medrin. The men quickly begged for mercy. "Spare us, Chief Mage. We'll never dare again." Hearing someone call her Chief Mage, Medrin proudly said, "That's right, I am the Empire's only 7th-tier Chief Mage." This left Prince Leon somewhat embarrassed, chuckling. Perhaps Medrin has been under some stress lately. Then, Ellison changed the subject. "You want me to take charge of investigating the source of the poison?" The prince nodded in confirmation. "That's right. No matter how much we interrogate Count Deadran, he says nothing, and the commanders sent there have been successively killed. So I'm sure these 2 men are from the outskirts of Deadran City. But why would you assign such an important task to a restaurant owner?" The prince explained reluctantly. "Count Deadran's castle has been destroyed, and many leads have been lost. I want to know if he feels a bit responsible for the current situation we can't control." This made Ellison uncomfortable. "Who told you this information?" The prince waved his hand. I can't tell you. It must remain strictly confidential. However, I can reveal that this person is a 7th tier mage of the Empire. Hearing this, Medrin couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Ellison sighed helplessly. I didn't expect setting off fireworks to lead to so many issues. He then accepted the prince's mission. However, there's another matter. Medrin, come see me later. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Dedran, most of the people here are homeless, and the city has become chaotic due to Dedran's financial issues. Ellison didn't expect the situation to be worse than he had anticipated. Coupled with the spread of the poison, no one dares to take charge here. He realized that he couldn't catch everyone alone. Acting rashly would only alert the criminals, so he needed to come up with a plan. Then, Ellison called out to Rurin, I have a plan. Do you want to hear it? But it's a bit dangerous. Rurin smiled, indicating Ellison shouldn't worry. As long as you arrange it, I'm willing to do anything for you. A moment later, Rurin is locked in a cell. The prisoners gawk at her with sleazy expressions, like a pack of hyenas seeing a lamb. However, Rurin didn't expect that the cell would not separate men and women, but who the lamb really is remains to be seen. As Rurin faces the prisoners, a voice interrupts her. I heard there's a girl prisoner today. This person is Ricardo, the Lord Chamberlain of Dedran City. Rurin didn't expect that the city's gang leader would be in charge of managing it. The guard points at Rurin. It's this prisoner. She was arrested for assaulting passers-by on the street. Seeing Rurin's rebellious look, Ricardo is very pleased. A bit rebellious, but that's exactly her selling point. Rurin's eyes fill with murderous intent. At that moment, the maid behind interrupts Ricardo, apparently because the Empire's 4th count has arrived. Soon, Ricardo heads to the reception hall, but he is inwardly furious. Does this guy have a death wish? He should know that 3 counts have already disappeared here. Despite this, Ricardo maintains a smile on his face and greets him. Welcome, esteemed count. I heard you are from the palace. Ellison sits on the sofa, legs crossed, and states nonchalantly, it's nice to see you. I'm Count Rivolk, and from now on, I will take charge of Dedran City. Earlier in the morning, after receiving the appointment letter from Prince Leon, Ellison arrived at the Duke's residence as Count Rivolk. Ricardo, seeing the imperial seal, realized this was indisputably true, but the new city lord arrived faster than he expected. He unhappily reminds him, Count Rivolk, do you know, before you, there have already been 3 of the dispatched officials who mysteriously died. Ellison smiles and responds lightly, are you saying I should be careful so as to not become the 4th? Ricardo does not answer directly, but chuckles dismissively. How could I dare joke about such a matter? This gives Ellison a reason to act. Then, in front of Ricardo, he tears up the imperial appointment letter and acts greatly offensive and disrespectful. Seeing this, Ricardo breaks into a cold sweat, shocked that the new count would be so bold. It should be noted that such actions could lead to imprisonment. However, Ellison appears unconcerned, like a young man unaware of the gravity of the world. Rather than those boring administrative duties, I'd prefer this to be a place of interest. Isn't there an area where our interests align? Ricardo doesn't respond immediately, but looks significantly more sullen. Meanwhile, Rurin is being taken to transfer cells. Although she could easily leave, she must endure her temper to cooperate with Ellison's mission. Soon, she is led away by the jailer. The prisoners' faces light up with excitement. It won't be long before you miss this place dearly because, compared to the outside, this cell is practically paradise. Rurin glances at them with the corner of her eye but ignores them. She knows that where she is being taken next is precisely the place Ellison wants to find. Meanwhile, Ricardo observed Rurin's every move from the shadows. Compared to the previous counts, Ricardo found he preferred Count Rivolk's personality. He could no longer kill officials lightly. He thought, let's see if you're just putting on a show or if you're really worth recruiting. At the count's office, Ellison's sitting at a table, staring at the potion in front of him, deep in thought. He didn't know if his acting had deceived Ricardo, and mentioning more might arouse suspicion. He could only hope that Rurin would achieve something on her side. Just then, the door was softly knocked, and the housekeeper came in with a cup of tea. Ellison made polite remarks, gesturing for the housekeeper to place the tea aside, but she didn't move. The Lord Chamberlain instructed me to ensure you drink a sip of tea before I can leave. He said it's a symbol of trust. This gave Ellison a sudden jolt, thinking, does this guy dare to openly poison an official? But to gain his trust, he had to drink the tea. Refusing would expose his real intentions. Looking at the tea, Ellison didn't hesitate and drank it all in one go. Suddenly, he felt a rush of heat surge through him, and seeing the housekeeper's slightly upturned mouth, he pretended to be calm and said, your tea is quite good. I almost choked because I drank too fast. Ellison gambled right. The tea was not poisoned. He thought, it seems I passed his test. Then, the housekeeper opened the door again, saying, there's just one more thing. He asked me to give you this gift after you passed the trust test. I hope you enjoy it. Seeing this, Ellison was stunned, and then he sighed lightly. This is a lot more complicated than I thought. I didn't think they had slaves. The housekeeper turned and left, leaving behind a woman with vacant eyes. Ellison immediately saw that the woman had been controlled. Just as he tried to awaken her, unexpectedly, the woman pushed Ellison down, pinning him underneath her. Meanwhile, in the other part of Dedran City, a man is angrily interrogating 2 men, the same robbers subdued by Medrin. Seeing them brought back, the man was very upset and immediately ordered his subordinates to take them to the laboratory. Hearing this, the 2 panicked, quickly begging for for mercy, knowing that the laboratory was a place of unspeakable torment. This man was Adrian, the manager of Dead Ran City Human Trafficking. As he pondered, his subordinate interrupted him, informing him that Ricardo had sent a female prisoner today. The punk doesn't get tired, does he? Dead Ran should at least keep distance. Wait, didn't Ricardo say he was going to send a girl prisoner here today? Adrian asks his subordinate, who then confirms that it was a female prisoner who committed assault. If it's assault, then could it be the one who beat our guys? At that moment, Rurin and other prisoners were bound by their hands and escorted to a dark, sunless mine. Rurin didn't expect so many slaves to be held here, as the Empire explicitly forbids slave trading. These people were clearly trafficked through illegal channels. Seeing the overseer leave, Rurin immediately activated a transport space, intending to inform Ellison of these circumstances. Although she wasn't sure if this was the exact place Ellison was looking for to manufacture the poison, she felt it was essential to notify him promptly. However, when she spoke through the transport space, she received no response. She looked into the transport space, her eyes widening in shock to see a woman on top of Ellison. Ellison was instantly sweating profusely, hurriedly explaining, "This must be a misunderstanding." This statement made Rurin incredulously watch the scene unfold. Suddenly, a terrifying energy burst from her body. However, the woman suddenly said, "Master, please give me your order." Rurin was immediately furious, her hands crushing the chains. Ellison hurriedly tried to calm Rurin. "This really is a misunderstanding. The woman in front of you has been controlled, and your released aura might attract their leader's attention, especially since we've barely infiltrated the Count's residence." Hearing this, Rurin slightly retracted her aura but coldly said, "Do some research on what the cultivation room is about. We'll discuss this matter later. You better be prepared." Ellison felt aggrieved, thinking, who can judge this? Meanwhile, the patrol guard noticed something unusual in the cell, so he hurriedly opened the cell to check it while Rurin had to quickly close the transport space to avoid further trouble. Rurin quickly changed the subject, laughing as she said, "I just wanted to point out that your chains are of poor quality. I'd like a new set." This statement left the nearby guard dumbfounded. Rurin's actions were closely observed by Adrian from the shadows. He deduced from her aura that Rurin was actually a dragon. Hearing this, the deputy commander was profoundly shocked, and knowing he couldn't defeat her, Reedon had no choice but to seek someone else to handle it. The next day, Ricardo visits Ellison's room again, smiling as he asks, "Did you enjoy the gift I sent yesterday?" Mentioning this, Ellison got angry, nearly failing to explain himself to Rurin. However, he suppressed his anger and responded casually, "I quite liked your gift. That woman I'd like to keep for a few more days. By the way, it's not the first time I've seen slaves, but she seems a bit different." Hearing this, Ricardo's smile broadened slightly. "You noticed their special feature, didn't you? These slaves are completely obedient through mind control, so there's no worry about them escaping or rebelling. They will execute any order you give without reservation, so they can do anything you want them to do." Ellison hadn't anticipated, aside from the poison issue, such a severe slave problem. He pondered whether to uproot this slave market. If left unaddressed, who knows how many innocent lives would be ruined. "So, are you thinking of expanding the slave market using my identity to open a route for selling slaves to influential nobles within the Empire?" Ellison asked coldly. Ricardo stroked his beard, pleased. "It seems like collaborating with you is the right choice." Ellison quickly changed the subject, "But before that, I want to confirm something about the origin of these slaves. Does it have to do with the place called the cultivation room?" Ellison asked calmly. This caused Ricardo's pupils to shrink suddenly, clearly not expecting Ellison to know even this. Ellison gestured for him to relax. "I wouldn't cooperate without understanding the situation. Can I now see the entire process?" Ricardo smiled. "Since we're partners now, you can certainly know about these processes. It's a lot closer than you think." Meanwhile, Adrian was heading to a room, then he knocks on a door. He is instructed to come in. He opens the door saying, "I have a bit of a difficult issue here." The person in the room was the red dragon Sydney. Because Adrian noticed that Rurin's aura was similar to Sydney's, he had no choice but to ask Sydney for help. After all, the business also involved the red dragon. Meanwhile, led by Ricardo, Ellison finally arrived at their cultivation room. The place was filled with traces of magic, leading Ellison to surmise that a powerful mage was involved. Moreover, the workers' physical condition seemed quite poor. Ellison knew that the next step was to identify the components of the poison. Ellison then asked, "Can these ingredients produce an untraceable poison?" Thinking Ellison was interested in other drugs, Ricardo was about to pull out some samples from his coat. However, at that moment, Adrian suddenly interrupted him, asking calmly, "Why bring others here?" Before Ricardo could answer, a blade swiftly crossed his throat. Adrian coldly stated, "You made a basic mistake, and now I'm correcting it." Ellison hadn't expected them to be so ruthlessly against their own people. At that moment, Adrian's gaze fixed on Ellison. Seeing this, Ellison no longer hid his intentions, smirking, "It seems this role-playing game is over." At the same time, Rurin heard the commotion from afar and sensed a trace of magic. She knew things were starting to change. Just then, danger approached. Sydney found Rurin and taunted, "My cage even holds a black dragon." Meanwhile, Rurin, surprised to meet the red dragon Sydney here, was even more astonished that she hadn't sensed her presence. At that moment, Sydney looked at her and slowly said. Although you do not know who I am very familiar with your affairs, Rurin, Varen's daughter. This left Rurin stunned. You know my mother's name? Sydney revealed a sinister smile and let out a chilling laugh. I know not only her name, but also remember when she took her last breath. Do you want to hear about it? Hearing this, Rurin's aura darkened. Thank goodness Ellison isn't here. He would have tried to convince me to give someone like you a chance. Dragon energy is bursting from her body. As her words ended, the entire iron cage instantly melted. Rurin was once again forced to assume her dragon form, which she least wanted to use. At that moment, Sydney, far from panicking, sneered. Let's see just how much Varen's daughter has grown. Just now, under Sydney's continuous taunting, Rurin started gathering energy in her mouth and launched a fierce dragon breath attack. The blast of dragon's breath left a huge hole in the ground, stunning the nearby soldiers. They had never seen such a terrifying scene and quickly got up to flee. Rurin is looking for Sydney. When she looks up, she notices a red glow. In an instant, several red dragon breaths blasted towards her. The red dragon Sydney continued to provoke. You should have stayed in Great City, playing house with that human man who brought you here. Hearing this, Rurin grew even angrier. Next, the battle between the two dragons officially began. Meanwhile, at the cultivation room, Adrian, watching the materials being burned, did not care. Instead, coldly said, "Perfect, you're helping me destroy the evidence." But how could Ellison let his plans proceed? He coldly watched, already prepared to take his next steps. Ellison casually cast an ice spell to extinguish all the flames, coldly stating, it would be a pity if it destroyed all the evidence. Seeing Ellison easily use high-level magic, Adrian tensed up, realizing the man before him was no ordinary official. Thus, he pretended to ask why Ellison was there, trying to distract him, and took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. However, the attack did no damage to Ellison. It seems your magic is indeed quite formidable, Adrian coldly remarked. Ellison had not expected Adrian to be a first-level knight. He casually remarked, "So, you came from the palace, didn't you?" This caused a shock to Adrian, who didn't expect Ellison to guess his origin just from a casual strike. This made him feel the situation was increasingly complicated and also felt it was dangerous. Adrian then used a more powerful sword technique and quickly attacked. Ellison waved his finger trying to restrict Adrian's movements, but Adrian agilely dodged his magical attacks, as he could see through the flow of magic. In just an instant, Adrian had closed in on Ellison with such speed that Ellison was momentarily stunned. But fortunately, Ellison reacted quickly and immediately deployed a defensive spell. Adrian had evidently noticed that Ellison wouldn't use a large-scale magic attack because he needed to preserve the evidence at the scene. This gave Adrian a chance to strike. Countless flashes of the sword quickly surrounded Ellison. He realized that this was beyond the scope of a first-level knight. Adrian's swordsmanship was exquisite. It seemed to attack from all directions, but all the damage was concentrated at one point, the best strategy for assassinating a mage. With Adrian's full-force sword energy, Ellison's shield was instantly pierced. However, despite this, Adrian's attack still failed to inflict substantial damage on Ellison. Ellison, seeing himself unharmed, couldn't help but smile. That was indeed a powerful move. Logically, it was the right thing to do, but you overlooked the strength of your opponent. Seeing Ellison completely unharmed, Adrian was incredulous, having never encountered someone who could withstand his attack. However, before Adrian could react, Ellison had already appeared in front of him. Accompanied by the release of powerful magic from Ellison, Adrian was harshly knocked back several meters, but Adrian quickly stood up again, causing Ellison to frown slightly, as Adrian's body seemed to have been modified to withstand such a powerful attack. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Dariant just arrived. Just then, Mrs. Verna already recognized the prince. She exclaimed in surprise, "Are you here because of the Deadran affair?" The prince gestured for her not to be anxious and said lightly, "I already know. It's all due to Deidran's actions." At that moment, Dariant found the prince, and the prince asked about the interrogation of Deadran. Dariant shook his head helplessly. From start to finish, he didn't say a single complete sentence. It seems that the castle incident hit him hard. Just then, the prince suddenly asked Dariant very seriously, "If you and Ellison fought a battle, who would win?" This question startled both Medran and Dariant. "Your Highness, what do you mean?" they asked. Puzzled, the prince smiled and gestured for them to hurry up. "I'm serious. Answer me." Hearing this, Dariant answered seriously. "Although it's a serious question, it sounds somewhat foolish. Even if Medran and I join forces, we would never be able to win against Ellison." Hearing this, the prince realized that Ellison's strength far exceeded his expectations. Meanwhile, Dariant suddenly thought of someone, saying, "However, there might be one person who could last a few more rounds against Ellison. He is a genius swordmaster who redefined the swordsmanship of the First Order of Knights, Commander Adrian Pierce. I've never seen a swordsman as talented as he is. He's the reason why I'm still a vice commander." The prince sighed helplessly, as he had also heard of this person, but that was when he was studying abroad. Didn't he disappear at the start of the Great War? At that moment, Adrian inquired about Ellison's true identity, and when he learned Ellison's name, Adrian seemed to know quite a bit about Ellison, coldly laughing. "So, you are that deserter." Ellison did not expect him to know this title, which made him increasingly curious about Adrian's identity. However, Adrian obviously did not want to stay here long and suddenly swung two sword energies at the ceiling, trying to create chaos. He knew that the laboratory and those slaves would distract Ellison. If I had met someone like you earlier, perhaps my choices would have been different, Adrian said softly, then disappeared into the chaos. Meanwhile, fire is also fuming at the cave. The battle between Rurin and Sydney had ended, with the red dragon sprawled on the ground. Rurin coldly asked, "Tell me, how do you know my mother?" However, Sydney was still defiant, taunting, "I know all your mother's secrets, including how she created the essence crystal, was imprisoned, and pitifully died there." Before Sydney could continue, Rurin ended her life with one strike, coldly saying, "If the secret is leaked, I can just kill everyone who knows." With Ellison's help, those under control quickly regained consciousness. They are immediately grateful for Ellison's help. Just then, they found a corpse nearby. When they saw the corpse clearly, anger surged because the body was that of Ricardo. They immediately stepped on the corpse. Ellison noticed this and also showed understanding, as Ricardo had committed many evil acts, and he even felt like stepping on him a few times. Meanwhile, Irimantium quietly infiltrated the building by mind-controlling everyone and making them fall asleep, as Ellison had given him a special task. Irimantium pushed open a door, finding that the slaves Ricardo had sent earlier were still lying there. On the other side, Rurin opened the cage door, but the slaves inside appeared confused. Rurin quickly realized they were under mind control. Just then, Ellison arrived. He looked around, noticing the corpse of the red dragon on the ground. Rurin then recounted the events to Ellison. Rurin informed Ellison that some red dragons knew her mother had once created an essence crystal, and the fact that she absorbed that as well. Ellison realized that the matter of the essence crystal was becoming increasingly complicated, but for now, the dead ran poison affair seemed to be resolved. Rurin then asked Ellison what to do with the slaves. They were brainwashed and won't react to anyone except those they recognize as their masters. Ellison was already prepared with a plan. Soon after, Irimantium appeared before them, and Ellison promised that he would let him go back if he completed this task. Irimantium cast a spell, and the slaves who had been listlessly wandering soon regained their consciousness. Everyone is cheering as they celebrate their freedom. At that moment, Ellison called out to everyone. He had already prepared food for them. Rurin, first time seeing this, curiously asked what it is. "These are cup ramen. I bought them from the other world. Just add the right amount of hot water, cover it, and wait 3 minutes." The slaves cautiously try to bite, and soon enough, they slurp down even the soup to the last drop. Seeing this, Rurin couldn't help but join in the noodle feast. After all this, Irimantium quietly left. At that moment, he fell into deep contemplation about his medical skills. Within the dragon race, no matter how hard he tried, he was mercilessly mocked, simply because he didn't have a handsome face. Everyone dismissed his medical skills, but after these recent events, he gradually understood that his medical skills able to help many people, and they are extremely grateful to his skills. Therefore, he decided to reassess himself and not waste his abilities. Night comes. Ellison and Rurin safely returned to the restaurant. Ellison hadn't expected Irimantium to be so proficient in medicine, even curing that woman from last time. At that moment, Rurin seemed to recall something about what happened that time and asked, "So, are you prepared to pay the price?" Hearing this, Ellison was shocked. In the next instant, Rurin longed at Ellison. Ellison thought Rurin was about to teach him a lesson, but it wasn't as he expected. Rurin stepped forward and simply hugged him, which was her form of punishment for Ellison. Ellison, smiling, assured that such incidents would never happen again, but he wouldn't mind if such punishments occurred a few more times. Just then, Ellison suddenly remembered that Rurin had seemingly dealt with the red dragon's body. Rurin denied it, shocking Ellison. Rurin thought Ellison had already taken care of it. That meant the red dragon's body had disappeared. It turns out it was just a clone of Sydney, with only half of her actual strength. Then, a man appeared behind Sydney, the very one who had slipped away from Ellison's grasp earlier, Adrian. When Sydney heard Adrian praising Ellison, she wasn't surprised, knowing well that Ellison's identity was no ordinary one. The next day, the prince had Darian sweep through Deadran City, finding the situation there more severe than expected. Not only was there poison production, but also the use of dark magic for mind control. Yet, Ellison easily resolved all these issues. The prince expressed his deep gratitude. However, what the prince hadn't expected was the involvement of the dragon race. Ellison then cautioned him against meddling in dragon affairs without understanding the situation. The prince nodded, as he certainly didn't want to die young. Ellison was also curious about whom the prince would appoint to take over Deadran. Next, the prince pulled out a scroll and handed over the orders to him. Reading this, Ellison was incredulous at the prince's arrangement. The scene shifts to the prince arriving at the Earl of Grake's estate. Unaware of the situation, Ridden thought they were there to arrest Verna, leaving the prince stunned because that wasn't their purpose at all. When Ridden saw the contents of the document, he was shocked. Ridden had performed excellently during this period, which the prince had noted. Therefore, he decided to merge Grake and Deadran, appointing Ridden as the new lord. Mrs. Verna was unable to believe what she was hearing. Just when the prince thought Ridden would happily accept, he unexpectedly declined the offer. The prince was momentarily dumbfounded, unable to understand why Ridden would reject what many dreamed of. Although Ridden was unwilling to take charge, he could recommend a suitable candidate. Meanwhile, the sun set, and Prince Leon and Darian were satisfied leaving Grake City. city. Back at the Greyk's estate, Diran was called into the room by his father and also learned of the merger of Greyk with his father as the new lord. However, Ridden had other plans, noting that his son was already 17, and then inquired if he had any romantic interests. At that moment, Diran was startled, not expecting his father to bring up marriage so soon. Yet, the more shocking news followed because Ridden wanted him to manage Deadran City. Although Ridden had been comatose during this time, his consciousness was clear, so he believed Diran could effectively manage Deadran City. Seeing such trust from his father, Diran was very happy and resolved to manage Deadran City well. A few days later, Diran went to inspect Deadran City. He didn't expect to find the environment so appalling, and he also wondered where had the military team gone. When he entered the room of the military team, he found them gambling and drinking, completely undisciplined. Seeing this, Diran was shocked, and then he felt his knees weaken as he fell. What on earth am I supposed to do? Where do I even start? Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Linty is cooking while Ellison and Rurin evaluate the dish he prepared. Ellison is impressed by his cooking skills, while Rurin said that she can cook this well too, which Ellison immediately disagreed with. Mrs. Rain is enjoying her meal as usual when she remembers that Diran went to Deadran City. Mr. Knoll also knew this and is proud of Diran making a name for himself. Just then, the restaurant doors open and there is Diran looking extremely exhausted, ordering one hamburger. Then he dives down his face to Mr. Knoll and Mrs. Rain table, which made them speechless. Ellison asked Rurin who ordered the hamburger, and Rurin, who saw what just happened, answered that it's a corpse who order. When the food was ready, Diran immediately grabbed it and began munching it happily. Seeing this, all of them were worried about him. Diran was shocked that they were able to notice it immediately. Then he began contemplating whether to say it or not. I can't keep relying on Master whenever there's a problem. I can't keep doing this forever. Seeing this, Ellison becomes more worried, asking if he can be of any help. Hearing this, Diran forced a smile and thought, "No, I'm fine. I just stopped by because I was craving the food here." But his reply was the opposite. "Yes, I'm dying. Please help me."